Technical difficulties again because I forgot to hit go live before we hit the intro. So I know all of you missed the intro last week. So just for prosperity's sake, here you go.
Ballpark Nation presents. Welcome to Go Astros, your look at the two-time World Series champions from three guys who have been here since Art Howe had hair.
And this is what happens when Jim takes 2 weeks off in a row, and he doesn't even have a continental excuse this time. I'm Andy, that's Brian. This is Go Astros. It is Monday as usual. It's June 17th, which is not as usual. And it's been a 500 week, Brian. How are you?
I am, I guess I'm feeling 500 as well, right? So actually, it's the last day of school for my kiddo because we're Yankees and we do this weird thing where we go in June, but not until after Labor Day. So he's having a great day. And, I'll have a interesting week with him being home until camp starts next week. Cheers.
Well, speaking as somebody who is in a family that likes to vacation the first week of June, we appreciate all the Northeasterners not starting their vacations until middle of June. Gets us the ability to go and come back and be all fresh. Speaking of all fresh, the Astros actually won a game yesterday, which put them at 500 for the week, which seems to be their theme right now. 500 or a little bit above. They beat the Tigers somewhat decisively, although we again had this thing where we scored in bursts and then did nothing much the rest of the game against a team that on paper we should be better than. I know on the record says that the Tigers are a tad better than us, or at least they were going into this game. What do you make of the series against the Tigers? 2 wins, but a pretty bad loss in the middle of those.
Yeah, I think we got outscored. So that's different from the rest of the year where, we're behind our pace on the Astros are behind their pace on the number of wins they should have compared to how they score. So this isn't how I hope they'd catch up. But they did really well when they got good starting pitching. And again, a big part of the slump in August is they got starting pitching that looked like the Saturday game.
Yeah, it was a rough start for Spencer Arrighetti. Verlander was supposed to take the hill and woke up with a stiff neck, evidently the previous Wednesday. And the Astros moved Arrighetti up into that starting slot. It did not go well. There is some discussion about how Spencer was notified. I assume he was notified earlier than the morning of. One would hope. It did not look like it. It looked like, for all the world, that he was told about 5 minutes before the game started that, hey, you're going to go pitch. And the results were about what you'd expect. I think we were down 10-0 at the end of the second inning. And then somehow we scored 5 runs to make it 13-5, which doesn't feel any more respectable.
No.
And the only good news that I saw coming out of that game, and we shouldn't dwell on just this loss, but that's what's sticking in my craw this week, is Chas McCormick actually hit a baseball hard.
So that was different.
Yeah, and I only bring it up because it's the first time it's happened in a really, really long time. So good for Chas. Maybe it foretells things to come. We were talking a little bit off air before we got on, and I came to this realization this week that I don't know how it happened. I don't know where it came from. Injuries certainly played a part of it. Ineffectiveness is another part. A new manager might be another part. But ultimately, this Astros team looks like a 500 team who got off to a bad start. And if you look at, where they are in the standings, we're 6 games under 500. It feels like we've been 6 or 7 games under 500 for a while now. Now 9 games back from the Mariners in the division and 7 games back from the wild card. I know we try to stay positive in this show, but when you have the 6th worst record in Major League Baseball through the middle of June, it's not a good team. Now, caveat to that is there's about 12 teams clustered within a game of that 6th worst record. And if the Astros could manage to win 3 or 4 games in a row, they'd probably jump up to middle of the pack. The problem is the Astros haven't won 3 games in a row more than twice this entire season. So those of us that are hoping for this long winning streak to come just fix things, I don't know that it's coming. Maybe it's not as dire in the Northeast where your kid's still in school and you're about to experience summer. But Brian, where are you on all of this? Am I just in the?
Well, it's not the dog days of summer yet, but you can see them around the corner, right? So the Astros started the year 7-19. It's obviously sort of a bad start. We talked a ton about that. Since then, they've gone 26-20. So they've made up. They were 12 games below 500. They've made up half of that in 7 weeks of baseball, which puts them on pace to be slightly above 500 if they stay that level. And as I've talked about a lot, they need to play a lot better than that to get to a record that would get them into the playoffs. And so, our expectations entering the year were that, well, they've gone to the playoffs each of the last 7 seasons, gone to the ALCS each of the last 7 seasons. Shouldn't they do that again? And that's kind of what we thought about this team entering the season. Wasn't necessarily guaranteed to win the AL West, but we thought they'd be really sort of strong contenders in that. That part hasn't worked out because of the bad start. And so what they really need to do is they do need a big winning streak. They do need a sort of a big stretch of games. And again, 26-20 is pretty good, but it's not good enough based on how big a hole they dug.
Yeah, I think looking at the schedule at the beginning of June, everybody thought the Astros would be able to make up some ground on the hole that they dug for themselves at the beginning of the year, and they've so far managed to go 8-6. The schedule for the rest of the month looks really, really manageable, but we've said this more than a few times about how manageable this schedule looks, and we end up putting pitchers on the IL and giving them Tommy John surgeries, and people wake up with stiff necks, and half of our offense decides to stop hitting, and we decide that Kyle Tucker is hurt but not hurt, but might be going on an IL stint, but maybe not, and just things keep kind of snowballing on this team. And I don't know that finger pointing generates a lot of positive outcomes, because there's just so many things that have gone wrong. There was a stretch where we weren't getting good starting pitching, and you could point there. There was a stretch we've been getting very good starting pitching, and the offense has decided not to perform. So I think what we're feeling is the laments of the rest of baseball for the past 7 years, and we haven't had to really deal with this outside of short little spurts where, oh no, we lost 3 games in a row and the sky is falling. I wish for those days. I remember them fondly.
Yes, well, for good reason, right? And we said a lot during those periods, right, that you should appreciate this because it's hard to do and rare. And, few people took very few people intended to take our advice, and mostly said, things aren't, they didn't go 162-0, let's complain. So one of the things I wrote this week, looking at because obviously that's part of the, hey, they're at a 500, you should experience them as a 500 team. I will give since you're giving the glass half empty take, I'll give the glass half full take. Particularly for 3 of the 4 star hitters, regression to the mean should be in the positive direction, which is that particularly Yordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve, who were fine but not great this year, there's reason to think there's more value in their bats, and that they will improve over the second half of the season. And if that's the case, that's only to the good for the Astros. Similar thing, Framber Valdez, Justin Verlander have not sort of performed. Hopefully with Verlander, it's a little bit of this neck issue has been bothering the last couple of weeks, because the other potential explanation on Justin Verlander is he's 41 years old and Father Time is undefeated, that bastard.
Yeah, speaking of Verlander, evidently the Astros are at this point choosing not to give him an IL stint, and Joe Espada said as much, that Verlander's probably going to make a start in Chicago against the White Sox, weirdly depending on Chicago's pitching lineup. So I don't know why you care who Justin Verlander would potentially be pitching against, unless we're playing National League rules, but that is something he said, so we'll just assume that he knows more than us, which I mean, it's fair. I mean, the good news is Verlander's not going to miss a significant amount of time. He missed a start at 41. Assuming he meets the innings criteria in his next year is picked up, which I think everybody assumes it will. We should expect that he's going to get a start skipped every now and then, whether it's a sore neck or a bad toe or his wife needs him to pick up milk, whatever those reasons are. Verlander's not a frontline starter at this point in his career, and he doesn't need to be. I mean, the Astros might need him to be, but if you got a solid 3 kind of performance out of him, you'd be pretty happy at this point in Justin Verlander's career. There's others. You mentioned Fromber. Fromber has had kind of an up and down season, more good than bad. Yeah, bad week, but more good than bad for Fromber this year. So certainly not what we saw in the second half, but the consistency. You throw a complete game shutout or a complete game win, and then the next game you're blown out of the stadium. That seems to be more of what we're getting from Fromber. And is there hope? You mentioned there's the regression to the mean should be positive for him. Is there hope that there's more consistency on the way?
I mean, hope, yes. Will we see it? I mean, it's been a year sort of since we've seen that, right? That Fromber pitched like that in the first half of last season and then had a very sort of inconsistent and more not consistent, more negative than positive second half of the season. He's been better than that so far this year, but still has been, I was saying, and again on, part of that is his strikeout rate has gone down. And so he's getting less swing and miss. I think he only had 1 strikeout in his performance Wednesday afternoon in San Francisco, which was bad Fromber. And so part of that was his inability to get swing and miss. And again, if he can't get swing and miss, he doesn't have the consistency in his command to get away without getting swing and miss.
Somebody who has been more consistent, and we wanted to talk some positives today. Hunter Brown was on the verge, at least from the GMs that run this show, of being sent down for a soul-searching mission to Sugar Land, or maybe Corpus, or I don't know, maybe Florida. He could have joined Jose Abreu at that point. April and March starts in 6 games. He had a 1.038 OPS against. Teams were slugging nearly 600 against him. And compare that to June, where teams are slugging 284 with a 530 OPS against. Something has definitely clicked for Hunter Brown. I know there was a pitch mix discussion. I know there was an addition of additional pitches to his repertoire, and feels like to me more confidence in his fastball and the ability to place his fastball where he wants it more than he was doing at the beginning of the year. But it's certainly been a very welcome turnaround. What are you seeing from Hunter Brown?
Yeah, and with his fastball, you're right about having better command on the fastball, but he's also throwing it less. So when he's throwing more confidence because he's able to get his off speed and his breaking pitches. So it's a bigger, it's a pitch mix change. Pitch mix is an oddly hard word to say for being a pair of one-syllable words.
Well, that was a failed brand from Chex Mix, Pitch Mix. It contained horsehide, and that was in the 20s when they put cocaine in everything. So yeah.
I think Babe Ruth endorsed it while smoking Chesterfields. And so he's been able to command basically all his pitches better, which has made his fastball, which is his worst pitch, which is, at some level, he throws the ball really fast. Shouldn't that be useful? And at one level, the answer to that is yes. And the other level is, Whitey Herzog had this line about major league hitters. These guys could time a bullet. They're really good too. And again, one of the ways if hitting is timing, pitching is interrupting timing, and having more pitches that you can command is a better way to do that. So a very worrisome April from Hunter Brown, but a very encouraging May and a really excellent June so far. So that's been a real sort of encouraging sign because, again, the rotation has been a big, I think, there are multiple factors there, but to me, the biggest concern in April was the rotation. And again, Spencer Arrighetti on Saturday, notwithstanding, the rotation has come through since then, been better and more consistent, and thank goodness.
Speaking of that, I think one of the guys no one would have predicted being the best pitcher on the staff, Ronel Blanco, threw another gem yesterday, took a no-hitter into the 7th inning before he was replaced. His pitch count was too high. There is no argument from anybody, I think, on this show that he should have been kept in to see what happens, because it's just silly at that point. He wasn't going to throw another 30 pitches on top of the 94 he already thrown. But he is certainly put himself in the conversation as best Astros pitcher this year, which, shortest midget conversation. But I think he's in line for an all-star appearance, or at least he should be based on his numbers. This year, he is 7-2 with a 2.43 ERA and a WHIP under 1. And for a starting pitcher to have a WHIP under 1, that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He has made all of his starts outside of, his inability to clean the inside of his glove, has been a guy that has made quality starts almost all the way through. How much credit does Dana Brown get, and how much credit should he get for recognizing that this is a guy that could be a major league starter last season and seeing that through? Because Ronel Blanco at the beginning of the 2023 season was on the verge of being non-tendered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, and the other thing to note, right, is when we say where would the Astros be without Ronel Blanco, and the answer would be searching for a starting pitcher. They are out of healthy. They have 5 healthy starting pitchers on the 40-man roster right now. Hopefully that won't continue, and that's part of the concern about Verlander is not just we like him to pitch better and like him to pitch well, but also the alternative seems to be don't know. So the Ronel Blanco thing. So Dana Brown gets a lot of credit. The other person who gets a lot of credit is pitching coach Josh Miller, who went down to the Dominican Republic. He visits with all the players in the Dominican here, and while I was in the Dominican, worked on a new changeup grip with Blanco. And so Blanco's become an effective starter, not just because he's been able to lengthen himself out and get more stamina. Impressive for a guy who sweats as much as he does. By the way, Ronel Blanco's in the sweats too much club with me here, so this is why I like him. That it's made him have a third effective pitch, and that changeup has been, a real difference maker for Ronel Blanco. Ronel Blanco is, I believe, 30. He's probably never going to make huge money in baseball. He's probably never going to get to free agency. I hope he does. So I hope he gets an all-star. I just hope he gets an all-star appearance just for his sake of, all the work and effort he's had to put in his life. He didn't sign until he was 21, which in Dominican years is like signing at 90, and made the majors. So it's been great for Astros, and it's just been a great story.
I will say that if he doesn't move on to another team at some point in his career, he's going to be very difficult to fit an immaculate grid later on. So I'd hope for your sake that, he at least makes an appearance for Oakland at age 36 or something like that. I guess it won't be.
It's very exciting what he's going to do in the Rockies bullpen in 2033.
I'm sorry, I said Oakland. I meant Las Vegas. Sorry, Oakland. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And going back to Justin Verlander for just a second, I hadn't put that together, but I wonder how much of Verlander doesn't need an IL start equates to Verlander. We can't afford Verlander to be on the IL for 10 days because the next option, I guess, is Blair Hensley and Blaine. Is his name Blaine?
They signed a guy named Eric Lauer to a minor league contract after he didn't make the Pirates because he's actually pitched in the majors before. But if you're taking the Pirates scraps, that's not exactly where you want to be. I wrote about this, I think, 2 weeks ago, and I said, I believe the plan right now is hoping everything works out. And hope is not you've heard the expression, hope is not a plan. So, It's not an ideal scenario. hurry back Luis Garcia.
I'm gonna just make up the fact that the guy's name is Blaine, who might be making a start for us if we lose another starter, and then I can just use pretty in pink quotes for a long time on this show because Blaine's not a person. That's a major appliance, Brian. So I guess we're at the point of the week to come. The Astros are off today. Probably needed the rest. They open up a 3-game series on Tuesday against the White Sox, who are one of the teams that are demonstrably worse than the Astros. There's not a lot of those, but this is both on paper and on the field. The White Sox aren't a good team. I say
They're
that
batting Corey Jokes leadoff.
I say that knowing full well that the Astros could go in and face plant on the south side of Chicago this week. But I'm putting it out there in the universe. The Astros are a better team in every facet of the game compared to the White Sox, who are reeling from where they were in 2022. It's been a pretty downhill stream from there. And then we come home to play the Orioles for 3. I have less good feelings about that series. So what can we look for, provided that all our pitchers make their starts and they're semi-effective? Is this another 500 week? Is that the best we can hope for? What's the master prognostication from the Northeast this week?
I mean, they are. Yeah, I mean, they are better. They are better than the White Sox, who are a just terrible organization. Who didn't conduct a GM search after firing their GM finally, who had a stillborn rebuild. They made the playoffs in 2021 and won 1 game against the Astros, and that's their high water mark. I guess it's the high water mark is that old guy with the cane trying to hex the Astros in the ALDS, which is
that's memories for the South Side, I guess.
Yeah. But, and then the Orioles, who are among the handful of best teams in baseball. So it's a yin and yang week here. Predictions are hard, particularly about the future. So, it's sort of hard to say, but, they should win the White Sox series. They should lose the Orioles series. They need to win. They need to win 4 games this week, though. Because, again, they can't afford many more weeks of treading 500. Because if they do, they'll end up at 500. It's not good enough.
I will say that if there's a team that is the Astros may just by the war of attrition end up in second place this week, because if there's a team that is struggling worse than the Astros right now, it might be the Texas Rangers, who are now just a half game above the Astros through no fault of the Astros. Mm-hmm. The Astros were 500 this week and gained ground on the Rangers.
Well, the Rangers got swept by the Mariners, which is a reminder today. The Mariners, they're lacking in other places, but they have really good starting pitching, which they got in all 3 games against the Rangers, and that they lost ground in the end because of that to the Mariners. But frankly, at this point, I'm not worried about the division. They're 9.5 back in the division.
Yes,
I'm worried about the wild card. Fortunately, the rules are very generous on that these days. Unfortunately, I live through April.
I mean, there are still 91 games, I believe, for the rest of the season for the Astros. There's certainly the ability
to go 91-0. They'll definitely win the division. I will say that.
I would say that. But, I mean, it's weird, and I know some of it is just based on the fact that we've experienced and been spoiled by success for the past 7 seasons, but this is not a good division. If you look at the run differential, there's only 2 teams with a positive run differential. The Astros made that mark finally this week. They're at +4. The Mariners are at +19. Everybody else is negative. So you would expect that at some point the Astros do reel off 3, 4, 5 wins in a row, get closer to an actual 500 number and kind of go from there. I hope that's sooner rather than later. And I guess that's the frustrating thing for me is that we're looking at this Orioles series over the weekend and expecting the worst, and a reasonable person would do that, but it's also baseball. And the Orioles could come in and absolutely just fall apart, and the Astros could put together a really good series and win that series.
Yeah.
I don't think it's likely, but it's probable. Maybe not really probable. And that's a frustrating thing because there's so much talent on this team. If they could just get clicking in the same direction, I don't think we're at the point where we are fatally flawed other than depth. From a pitching point. I mean, there are players who have performed at a high level all up and down this roster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are all older. Yes, this is a team that is aging. Yes, they are depending a lot on mature players. But maybe Kyle Tucker.
That was true last year as well.
Yeah, maybe Kyle Tucker comes back this week. He's being threatened with a rehab start if he doesn't. That's evidently Joe Espada's new motivating factor is that if you don't start running around, buddy, you're going to Corpus, and they're going to have a hurricane this week. So good luck.
Yeah. Do you really want to be a space cowboy? I mean, that's kind of,
They do have a very nice faux back jersey and hat set, so I will give him that. He probably looked pretty sharp in that. Jordan seems to be coming around and hitting better and hitting with more authority and not looking completely lost at the plate like he did for about 3 weeks. Yeah. Altuve looks like he's primed for another one of those 3 to 4 week stretches where it doesn't matter where you throw the ball, he's going to put the ball in play. That pitch he hit, I think, Friday night that was 5 feet outside. Shouldn't have hit it, shouldn't have swung at it, but somehow made contact.
He hit a home run yesterday and a ball 4 inches below the strike zone.
Exactly. So he's in one of those.
And he's got the lowest strike zone in the majors.
It feels like he's in one of those spots where he's about to tear off 40 hits, in 10 games.
Yeah.
Brinkman has played better this month. He's played the rest of the season. So there are pieces. Even Yainer Diaz seems to, after we talked about him out loud, decided to make us look stupid and hit 4 home runs in 4 games or something like that. So there are pieces, and I guess that's just the frustrating part for Astros fans is why isn't it working this year when it worked last year?
Yeah, I mean, one answer is they're 5-13 in 1-run games, and that is mostly luck. Which is a frustrating answer, right? Because, it's supposed to be that that your performance matters, and it sounds like you're making excuses, but 5-13 is 5-13, right? If they could even that out, they'd have 4 more wins. They'd be closer to the good here. Their ability to, hit they began the season not hitting well with runners in scoring position. They should, I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening, they should score more runs. In the end, it doesn't matter, right? It matters what they actually do, but it's sort of looking forward. We know this is a better team than what their record is, and those are some reasons why that's the case. Those are the type of things that will, over the long run, even out. So, hey, maybe they get a couple of fluky wins against the Orioles, right? Maybe they're down 2 in the 9th. Craig Kimbrell comes in and decides to be Craig Kimbrell. For the Orioles. That is certainly sort of a possibility. Maybe the Orioles just hit a bunch of hard balls where they all go to center field and Jake Myers tracks him down. There are games like that essentially the Astros have lost this season. It'd be nice if that sort of came back around. Will it? Again, over the long run, that will, but the long run could be over the next 3 seasons, not necessarily over the next 3 months. They kind of need it to happen in the next 3 months. Yeah,
and I think that's who knows what's going to happen. I think that wraps it up mostly for us today. I'm going to give another shout out to my Aggies in Omaha. They won a thrilling game. All the games in the College World Series have been thrilling. 3 walk-offs and a catch over the outfield wall to prevent a go-ahead run against Florida for A&M. And then
it's a terrible year for those of us bitter that our team isn't there.
Look, your program is just a Paul Skeens away from being right back there. So, we're up your NIL, and I'm sure you'll be back. But A&M plays Kentucky tonight at 6 o'clock, so I'll be rooting for the Ags from a safe space, probably hiding behind a pillow because I don't do well in high-stress situations. And, frankly, I don't have game day to watch for college baseball, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. Astros, enjoy your day off. I'm sure they traveled, so they have a day off in Chicago. It's much better weather there than it is here. Jim is joining the team in Chicago for two of the 3 games. So,
by the way, in the stands, not on the mound here. The way Andy said that is like he would be, he'd be, out of the bull, an option out of the bullpen. Good news.
We have lots of video of Jim. We have lots of video of Jim throwing pitches. So I don't think anybody wants to see that. Is it a possibility? Yes, it's possible at this point. He would be very easy to acquire.
Yes.
The bidding war list is pretty short on that one.
He may be better than Blaine Henley.
Again, it's an appliance. Hopefully, if the Astros manage to lose the series in Chicago, you know who to blame. It won't be either of us because we're taking off for the rest of the week. For Brian, I'm Andy. This is Go Astros. We will see you next week with Jim back all rested and fresh from swimming with the turtles.
I'm going to Mystic, Connecticut tomorrow to live out the Gen X dream of hoping to find Annabeth Kish at Mystic Pizza. Go Astros.
I can't top that. Go Astros.